You know, it's always interesting looking back on a show that's very popular online and taking some time to see if it actually gels with you and if it lives up to the hype. And that's where the Owl House comes into play for me. I know that I probably should have talked about the show in the past, back when it's at its peak of popularity so I could view farm, but I don't think it's a problem if I'm a little late. Besides, it's never too late for me to make a topic video, although I've made it no secret that I'm not a fan of modern Disney.
I'm gay.
And one of the major reasons why is I'll go more in depth later in this video because it's partially why this show actually is getting a GIMP Season 3. But more on that later. Spoilers ahead! Although as a heads up, I will not be doing a full recap of the series, I still think you guys should go watch the show for yourself and come to your own conclusions without having my biases cloud your judgment if you haven't seen this show yet. So, what is the Owl House?
Hoot hoot! Password please!
Ah, who am I kidding? Most of the people who are watching this video are probably fans who already know this, so why do I need to include an introduction?
Time codes are a thing.
Oh yeah! If you already know what the Owl House is and don't want an explanation, go ahead and skip to the next chapter. I won't judge you for skipping, but I will devour your soul. The Owl House is probably one of the more popular series in Disney's recent lineups. A horror-esque dark comedy with lots of fantasy. Hey, sounds like my kind of show, and I'm open-minded about new shows, even if they come from corrupt corporate overlords who are willing to discard shows and concepts that'll help them make another buck.
What kind of game are you playing?
Capitalism, where everyone wins except you.
Well, just look at all the f***s I give.
We follow Luz, a young teen girl who's quirky and being punished for being weird and kooky by being sent to summer camp to be taught how to do taxes.
Now, for the final anatomically correct touch, spider breath.
Oh, wow! That is relatable!
When she spots an owl stealing a book from her trash can and follows the little owl through a door that takes her to a magical world, specifically the Boiling Isles. Is this an isekai? Ugh. Anyway, Luz meets Ida, the owl lady, and King.
Plus, who could say no to this cute face?
No, please don't encourage her.
Now, when the show came out, it wasn't really something that caught my attention. Not that I was turned away from it because, well, it was early 2020. I was busy with things like Pokemon, Temtem, and Ruby. I was burned out. But hey, it's 2022, the world has changed, I've changed, and I'm looking back at a lot of things that I wanted to get into. And with the second season being over with and season 3 being talked about, I figured I'd binge both seasons. Okay, that's a lie. My girlfriend literally twisted my arm to watch them. So, let's get to the nitty-gritty. Do I think Owl House is good or bad? It's not as simple as that. While I don't think the Owl House is bad per se, it has some weaknesses, it has some strengths, and honestly it has some quirks that while I think were bad at the beginning, did grow on me or improved on as time went on. A show like the Owl House is something that can be complex, but simple when you really think about it. So let's start with the first episode, and I'm gonna be honest, it's pretty much how I feel about the series, at least the first season. Again, it's not bad, but there was this whole theme about weirdos being okay people, and it certainly isn't a bad theme. Hell, I prefer to be weird myself than to be normal, but this whole deal is something that falls flat. It's delivered with as much subtlety as a punch to the face. It's been done to death before in other media, but that's one of the weak criticisms that I have concerning it, since I believe that just because something has been done before, that doesn't mean it can't be covered again. I don't think it's a strong criticism of the media itself, but it can be a reason that people can dislike a piece of media. To me, it's the execution that matters, and that's where I think this message falls a little flat. Luz isn't really all that weird, especially by the standards of the 2020s. Reading fantasy books, video editing, anime watching, and overacting is something that you can find almost anywhere and everywhere. Hell, your average TikToker acts like that on a daily basis. Heck, just the other day when I was getting some boba tea, I saw a couple of girls walk into the cafe wearing cat ears and tails, and there wasn't a convention going on in my town. This sort of quirkiness is celebrating today's Western culture, and would probably net you a following on one of the many social media sites. The 80s and 90s? Oh, trust me, you'd get bullied relentlessly if you showed up in high school with a Power Ranger shirt, because it was more or less seen as nerd culture. But in modern day, which is what the Owl House is set in, I don't know, I find it to be a little less believable. Then again, I haven't been to an actual school in ages, so maybe I'm just letting my old man brain do the talking. This theme usually shows up now and again, but also is contradicted to...
Andy, you gotta stop being weird.
But Luz, I thought being weird was a good thing! Low-hanging fruit, I know. But hey, I'm just trying to have some fun here. The show tries to go with the outcast route a few times, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and when it doesn't, it's usually because of a character thing. These characters are caring when it matters. They have creativity, which again isn't what I consider a damning criticism, but still irks me on a personal level, especially when you consider Luz herself as a character. Season 1 Luz is... well, it's hard to explain. She isn't exactly unlikable, although she does have her moments of wince-inducing in the series.
Wow, my first day at Hexside. A chance to discover my true magical potential, and maybe meet a hot yet vulnerable upperclassman.
Dream on!
King?
Boop!
But hey, I've dealt with worse. Trust me, I never want to go back.
I shot myself!
Granted, I chalk up the friction I have with Luz as a character is because I'm not a fan of the always happy-go-lucky characters who are designed to be likable. I'm not gonna lie, there are times with her I can do anything attitude, consequences be damned, did get on my nerves. Also, the quirkiness can get tiresome pretty quickly. I think if I had to say, Luz was pretty boring after a while. If only there was some development going on. That isn't to say that there isn't anything likable about her. Hell, one of my favorite aspects about Luz is how she's capable of turning the tables on enemies, and not just relying on powerful magic. Something that she'll eventually master about with using her unconventional magical abilities in the second season with combining glyphs and timing. Granted, I think it's a little overplayed at times as something the show will conveniently help Luz out. If you want an example of this, take the episode when Luz finally joins the school to learn magic. She gets busted for trying out more than one class of magic by Principal Bump, gets the detention kids to help save the school from a magic-devouring basilisk by showing that mixing spell types can have good effects, and at first, after that, Principal Bump sticks to his guns that the rules should be obeyed, but is so easily convinced and allows Luz to be the first to try out different magical types.
Wow, son, we need to have a word.
Now, that is a very small complaint, but more stuff like this appears in the series. Like when Edith's transformed early in the series into the Owl Beast. Luz's phone falls out of her pocket and cracks, and because the phone is now glitching for some reason, Luz can now see a rune in the magic circle that Edith drew and allows her to perform light magic.
Suspicious.
Now, convenient timing and coincidence are things that can happen, and I'm not gonna lose my head over it. But it does begin to get a bit annoying when it keeps happening again and again, especially when it comes to heel turns of people's attitudes. Really though, if there's something I really took issue with, it was the about-facing that the characters took. Like, it feels like the characters changed too quickly, or there were things that were missing here, like it was done off-screen. Take Willow and Amity for example. In episode 15, we see the characters were once friends a long time ago, but were forced to break their friendship because of Amity's parents. To be specific, Amity was told to no longer associate with Willow, with the ultimatum being made that if Amity didn't do this, Willow would not be allowed to go to magic school. However, back in episode 3, we're given a pretty cut and dry scene of Willow and Amity in the woods, alone, with Amity going out of her way to bully Willow. Amity isn't with her new jerk friends, why doesn't she just leave Willow alone? Why is she actively bullying this girl, who was once her friend?
Aww, it's like mine. But much smaller and meaningless. As top student, it's my duty to tell you to keep at it.
That was truly cringeworthy.
I also find it amazingly rich that Amity has the gall to say this line, considering everything up to this point.
I've been trying to figure out what your deal is. Are you a poser? A nerd? I know. You're a bully, Luz.
You almost got Luz dissected! What are you complaining about? There are issues like this all over the place in the first season, and while there are times this crops up in the second season, like with Amity's parents and their depiction in the episodes I just complained about, I tend to overlook this stuff. It's usually just a one-off, and it doesn't really reflect the quality of the show, but it happens a few times over and over again, whether it be plot-related stuff, character beats, or even the rules that's set up in order to remove conflict. And now, we get to the big one. Lumity.
Well then, if that's settled, may I have this dance?
I need to say this off the bat, because people on the internet are dumb and like to think I say things that I never do or twist my words. And considering I'm talking about shipping and a canon couple at this point, I am just asking for people to think the worst of me to defend their pairing.
He's history's greatest monster!
So, let me say it out loud. Any issues I have with Lumity have nothing to do with the fact that it's two girls dating. I'm all for showing these kinds of relationships with media nowadays, and in all honesty, without my gripes, I will say that Luz and Amity make for a nice couple. Still prefer the green hair though. Anyway, doing a little research on the matter, you'll find that a lot of different opinions when it comes to Lumity. Of course, you've got people who think that the ship is perfect and the two must be defended at all costs. You've got the dumbasses who think it's a sin that two girls hold romantic feelings for each other. You've got the people who think the ship was developed a bit too fast. And you've got the people who think that shipping has become top priority on the show and may have hurt Amity's character. I tend to believe that the relationship was a bit rushed and that there are some issues with Amity because of the relationship. Granted, I don't think Amity's character is ruined or anything, but a different direction was taken and it really is not too out of the ballpark to believe that people would have an issue with this. I'll save the latter for when I talk about Season 2, but let's focus on the development of this shipping. Now, if you've been paying attention to the last few minutes of this video, you probably get the idea that Amity was a bully character. Hell, it starts off with Amity trying to get Luz dissected to prove that she wasn't an abomination. For those unfamiliar with the show, an abomination is a slime monster spell, kinda, I think. It reminds me of Muck. It eventually turns into a somewhat rivalry and evolves into a more respectful relationship, which is fine because it fleshes out Amity's character, showing that she's more than a bully. That's the charm of bully characters, to show that they aren't actually bad people and have redeeming qualities. Hell, she read to little kids at a library. It's why a lot of people enjoy redemption arcs for antagonists, that there's something more in the character than beneath the surface. And sure, it's completely possible for a crush to develop through that. I'm not questioning that at all, but it feels like the shipping happened on the turn of a dime, with Amity gushing a bit too much and it happening within the first season. Granted, that could be because the first season is 19 episodes, which is a really weird number of episodes for a seasonal cartoon. Maybe the groundwork is a little rushed at times, since the first season establishes the beginnings of a relationship, and in the second season, it's cemented. Personally, I think that the crush establishment happens a bit too quickly in the first season, and that can be different for you. Ida is the second lead of the cast, aka the sassy single aunt, copyright anime Christie.
It sparkles and shimmers, it shines and delights. I must have it for my nest.
Who is a witch from the Boiling Isles that mentors Luz and spends the series with the internal conflict of her curse that was placed upon her during her youth. My thoughts on Ida tend to be mostly positive. She's got a bit of an eccentric and comedic personality, a bit of a terrible teacher of magic, but makes up for it by being a motherly figure to Luz and King. I really don't have a lot of negative opinions about Ida. The only exception is that it seemed to be a bit contradictory in how she wanted to hide from the law, but in the first episode, she loudly pronounces that she's the owl lady in front of a lot of people. I guess chalk it up to her learning her mistake afterwards, but it still makes it a bit confusing, especially when her disguises suck.
Excuse me, ma'am, but you look rather familiar.
No I don't. Distraction spell!
And then there's King.
Oh man, here we go. King's squeak of rage.
He's flippin' adorable. Although, from what I understand, some people didn't like how he was using the Bill Cipher voice.
Oh, that's way safer than becoming blood brothers.
I can see how that can be a detriment to the character and how sometimes King's personality was borderline mind grain inducing with how he acted like a little kid. But King is a kid. It's really more dependent on what your sense of humor is and how much a cute design can do the heavy lifting for you for how your opinion can be about King.
Right. I don't know you.
If there's anything else I could say about Season 1, it's the comedy. It's really hit and miss at times. That can really hurt characters too. Like, King and Gus's likability is heavily reliant on if you can deal with their brands of comedy. I'd say Gus is the bigger offender of this with his kooky mannerisms and jokes. It made me not really care for the character, especially when he was willing to also lie to Luz when she was banned from the magic school because he wanted to show off a human. Now, before I continue, I do have to give major spoiler warnings for the show, especially for Season 2, since from this point on, I'll be going deeper into some plot details. I have a dedicated section for Season 2, but I feel that I need to talk about this stuff in order to lay the groundwork for my thoughts on the second half of the show. So if you're interested in the show, stop watching this video and watch it. So, let's talk about Lilith.
Aren't I lucky to find you here?
Stay away! If you touch us, Ida will come after you so fast!
That's the plan.
Ida's sister, and the one who cursed Ida with the Owl Curse. During Season 1, she was the Disc 1 boss, working for the Emperor and trying to capture her sister. All with good intentions, mind you, because she wanted to break the curse that was on Ida. If I had to say, it's an interesting character beat, and throughout the show there was this underlying mystery of who cursed Ida. Could have been stronger, but it was alright. The only thing I can say that hampered this was Lilith was essentially made into a joke for most of the time she tried to capture Ida. I remind of Team Rocket, only without the fashion sense.
I am a flaming Moltres!
Still, the fight that she has with Ida was pretty well done and certainly has that emotional gut punch when she lets it slip that she cursed her sister. There's only one more thing I'd like to really note, and that's Emperor Bellos and the overall theme of the series. And I will be going into Season 2 spoilers and possible theory crafting since that's somewhat important to what I'm going to be talking about. Emperor Bellos, aka Philip Whitbane, is the main antagonist of the series. As we learn, he's a human from the 17th century and his ultimate goal is to return to the human world. To do this, he's willing to manipulate, lie, and use whoever he can in order to do this. Initially, when we're introduced to Emperor Bellos, his motivations weren't clear. Technically speaking, he had only shown up in the last 2 episodes of the first season, with his identity only being referred to as the Emperor up to that point. During this time frame, there was a bit of a moral ambiguity going on with the Emperor. There's a lot of strictness going on with how the magic users in this world can only follow one code of magic and need to be part of a coven system. It was a way to provide some level of order to the Boiling Isles. Whether that's a good thing or not, well, we're kind of floating on over to Senator Armstrong levels of making the mother of all omelets here, Jack. Can't fret over every egg. I kind of like that, yeah. We as the audience know that Bellos is a liar to Lilith just to get to Ida. We know he breaks the palismans, you know, the magical staves that people have that also qualify as animals, and drinks their blood. But there was this hint that he was a bit of a necessary evil for there to be order on the Boiling Isles. Insert government joke here. I like this, and when we get to Season 2, when we get more information on him and the Golden Guard, I do find it to be an interesting turn for the plot. I know I'm jumping all over the place, but there's a lot to like about Season 1, such as Ida becoming a mentor figure to Luz, aside from being a magical mentor because Ida doesn't teach Luz any magic, other than just to look to the island. There are times the show can be cute, there are times when the show can be charming, and I don't want to leave the impression I think Season 1 is terrible, but it is shaky at the very least. It's good, but not what I'd call great. Now, if you want to talk about improvements...
Lo siento, Mama.
I think Season 2 is probably why I enjoy the Owl House, not only because it fixes a number of the issues that I have with the characters from Season 1, but also did some fun things. Granted, some of it does fly in the face of some other stuff that was established in Season 1, but hey, I don't mind. When it comes to Luz, one of the biggest changes is that there's a more concrete motivation as well as consequences for her actions. At the end of Season 1, Luz decided to destroy the portal to the human world to prevent Bellos from accessing the world of humans. Then in Season 2, part of the goal is to find a way to get back to the human world, and it opens up a lot of new plot ideas and episode stories that do lead up to some interesting revelations, including stuff with her mother who wants her to come back and stay with her. Another thing is to take a spin that Luz finds a diary of a human who was in the Boiling Isles before her, and finds a way to go back in time to meet with said human. And while she helps him out, it turns out the human is Philip, aka Emperor Bellos.
If you or your aunt want to... You hateable sorceress! Stay mad.
Actions have real consequences. Things aren't immediately changed on a dime, and there are things that have ramifications. And this is also highlighted with the character Hunter, also known as the Golden Guard. Earlier in the second season, he was a clear antagonist. But throughout the season, we get a more deep dive into the character, learning about how he has dependence on Bellos and doesn't have his own magical prowess, and had to rely on artificial magic. He also had this mindset of question throughout the series, even getting himself a palisman, the magical staff creature that Bellos likes to break and drain magic from. And it comes to a head in Hollow Mind, an episode where Luz and Hunter go into Emperor Bellos' mind and learn that he's a fraud, and that it's possible that Hunter is the latest in a long line of clones, each of them being killed the moment that Bellos viewed their actions as betrayal. After the shock of all this, the show does something a bit unexpected. Hunter runs away from Luz. Confused on what's going on, the show lets this revelation actually breathe and allows it to have an ending that makes sense when you consider everything that Hunter's been through. It's realistic to see him be confused on what to do with his life, and if he should go back to the Emperor or not. Honestly, the second season allows stuff like this to breathe. It also allows more expansion on what the characters were in the first place. Characters like King and Gus also get development in this season, which, if you found them a bit more on the irritating side, this development expands their characters. King more so, since he's a more main character, and even then, I doubt a lot of people found King to be annoying simply because of his design. I dig this cute design. And while I do appreciate that he develops from a more, yet cute character and develops into a story about identity and questioning where you come from and what to do with your life, it's all thanks to Steve.
Wants can change. So can people.
Steve's awesome. Anyway, other characters get more development, Willow being one as she gets more confidence in herself. If there's one thing I can criticize in this aspect for the season, it's that not every character gets it equally. And while it's fine if you don't want to take too much development from the main cast, which is kind of an issue I have with a lot of shows I reviewed on this channel, I do appreciate Hunter getting all this development, and it's good. I feel like there's a bit too much going on for the character, though, who was essentially introduced in Season 2. That's a nitpick on my end, though, and I'm willing to admit that. And hey, I'm not against new characters being introduced. That's never a bad thing. You just gotta make sure that they don't overrun it, a la Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Hell, take Rain Whispers, a character who used to be friends with and then had a bit of a fling with Ida when they were younger. But the two grew apart because of Ida's bad habit of hiding her problems and acting like everything was okay. The two still have a connection to each other, and hey, not only does it tie into the main plot of the story that I won't spoil, but also has the personal aspect as well. I should also point out that Rain is non-binary, which hey, I can always appreciate. Hell, I'm even willing to say that Rain is probably one of the better representations of non-binary characters in materials that I've reviewed. They've got their own character, they have a connection to the main cast that's not superficial, they've got their own goals and motivations, they've got their badass moments, and what I find to be especially great, no hand-holding on their identity. Their identity isn't the only character trait coupled with, being boring. What I'm saying is, give me more characters like Rain. They're awesome, and they don't annoy me. Now, watch as I burn all that goodwill I just built to the ground.
I'm a truth, that's the truth.
Amity and Luz's relationship. Now, I want to make it clear that my issue is that the relationship takes more of a forefront on the show. Now, I'm not saying I'm against the relationship itself, like I said before. Rather, I feel that in the first half, it takes a more prominent role in the show, especially with Amity's character. Like, I still have a bit of an issue with how she becomes more of a Luz's awesome girlfriend as a character trait. I'm not saying that Amity doesn't have any other development or character, she does, since she deals with her parent issues, but her girlfriend status takes a more front and center role. And hey, that's probably a personal thing for me. Perhaps you're the kind of person who loves shipping, but as someone who's worked for FedEx for about a decade, I can tell you I've had enough of the shipping and handling of relationships. I know, that's a really stupid joke. Dislike this video! I will say, when Amity stands up to her parents early in the season, and for good reason as Luz was about to be killed, nothing really comes for that until later on. Although I'm willing to put this more into the fact that there's a lot more that the team wants to do with the season, because it's being compressed because of the restraints on it. I'm not saying this is bad, just something that I noticed in the earlier half of the season. There's a lot to do and not a lot of time to do it. Thanks, Disney! To clarify, I'm not saying this is bad, but because of the pacing and limited amount of time, the show has a lot of lofty goals, and some of them hit, while others feel a little bit rushed and squeezed. Take Bellows. He's obviously an important character that the show took a lot of time and care for, and it shows because he's one of the more fleshed out characters in the show, which is important for a villain. As it's shown, he's got some real issues from his past, and considering that he's from the 17th century, he's stuck in his ways. It also doesn't handhold everything for you, so it allows for a lot of theory crafting, because there's this theory about him possibly killing his own brother floating around out there? I don't know, nothing's really been confirmed as far as I look, but it's all the more interesting to say the least. The show's good, really good. And I'd be lying that a lot of my intrigue comes from watching the second season before going back to watch the first. Then again, I did that with the Ace Attorney games and the Yakuza games, so maybe that's the key to make me like something. Seeing that something gets really good in the second half, save for a few hiccups here and there. There's a lot I could talk about, more positives like how the animation is fun and colorful, not to mention really good at times. The fight between Ida and her sister Lilith was extremely well done for a Western cartoon. On the flip side, I could talk more about the negatives, like how quick and easy Lilith got off for cursing her own sister and using Luz as a shield and almost hurting her. Kinda gave me the vibes of Forgiveness on the levels of Steven Universe. Mostly a nitpick on that though. But since I don't want to waste too much time on this, and because I think the show is worth watching and supporting, I feel like you guys should be going into the show as blind as you can after watching this. Yeah, I had some major spoilers, but there's a lot I didn't cover, and I'd like my audience to experience this show on their own accord, because it's a good show. It's rather unfortunate that I have my own issues with the future of the Owl House. I'm sure anyone who's a fan of the Owl House won't be surprised when I tell you that Season 3 is being regulated to 3 40-minute specials. Obviously, something like that is akin to a small made-for-TV movie, ranging about 2 hours worth of content. Back in 2021, there was already promise of a Season 3. Dana and her team have created a series that continues to push the envelope with epic and diverse storylines, an astounding world and multifaceted characters that have captured our audience. We're eager to showcase more adventures than Seasons 2 and 3.
Nope.
However, as many fans online would come to lament and wonder why the Owl House was ending after an admittedly gimped third season, the creator of the show, Dana Terrace, held a Reddit AMA in order to answer questions. One such was the representation of plus characters that was the cause of this, with Terrace responding with, "While we have had issues airing in a few countries, and are just straight up banned in a few more, I'm not going to assume bad faith are against the people I work with in LA." Now, while I agree you shouldn't have bad faith with people you work with, you're dealing with Disney, a massive corporation who has a track record in the latest years with how they'll play to Western society's evolution to acceptance of LGBTQ+ materials, but will go around their fans' backs to make sure that they can cater to the less than open minds of other countries, either by making the representation so small that it can be cut out, or even go so far as to make things worse. Granted, I'm not working in the industry, and Terrace is under more strict guidelines, and I'm sure she wants to be able to keep working in said industry, so whether or not that's true, I have to raise an eyebrow. Granted, I'm just a guy on the internet, so whether or not it's the case, I can only speculate and can't say anything definitively. Terrace believes that the actual reasoning was branding issues. At the end of the day, there are a few business people who oversee what fits into the Disney brand, and one day, one of those guys said, the Owl House did not fit that brand. The story is serialized, barely compared to any average anime, Lamau. Our audience skews older, and that just didn't fit this one guy's taste. That's it! Ain't it wild? Really grinds my guts, boils my brain, and kicks my shins, all the things. It sucks, but that is what it is. And if that's true, then I suppose I have to accept that. I guess corporate greed and dumbassery at its finest, folks. Regardless, I doubt we'll get the real answer for why the Owl House got this treatment. Not anytime soon, anyway. That's the thing with production and backroom deals like this. They tend to be under wraps for years on end due to contractual obligations or people not wanting to be ousted from the industry. So whether what Terrace says here is true or not, for another reason, I believe that we won't have the true answer anytime soon. Regardless, I do have some thoughts and fears for the third season, with the biggest issue being with the pacing. With how the season finale for season 2 was set up, along with the previous pilot threads, 120 minutes is not a feasible amount of time to finish up everything in a satisfactory manner. Still, I should reserve judgment until the season actually comes out, because at the end of the day, what can you do? The Owl House, while not perfect, is a perfectly entertaining show. It's colorful, has an evolving cast of characters, knows what it wants to do, and while I may not have all the time in the world to do that, and some priorities are kind of skewed, it's still a good show. And while it has its problems, you should probably go and catch it before it fades away. I'm MangaKamen, and thanks for watching.
Want to hear a joke? Here goes. My ex-wife still misses me, but her aim is getting better. Her aim is getting better. You see, it's funny because marriage is terrible.